Good evening. No more appeals. Saddam Hussein is to be executed within a month for crimes against humanity after an Iraqi appeals court upheld the death sentence imposed in November. The White House called the decision an important milestone. Zoe Conway reports.
Now with more of today's news from Britain and around the world, over to Bridgid.
Humberside police have arrested a 35-year-old prisoner on suspicion of killing fellow inmate Colin Hatch, the convicted child murderer. 38-year-old Hatch had been serving a life sentence at Full Sutton Maximum Security Prison near York.
This is the ITV News at 5:30 with Bridgid Nzekwu.
It comes as the RAF flies a huge consignment of currency to Libya to fund the new government. Also on the programme, the midnight deadline for travellers to leave their land in Essex runs out. Hello, I'm Bridgid Nzekwu. Here are the daybreak headlines in and around London. London's first free school opens in Redbridge today. Aldborough Free School will take children aged 4 to 6 to go into reception and Year 1 classes. In total, 24 schools, which are semi-independent state schools set up by parents, teachers and faith groups, are to open this month. Welcome to Amnesty News. 2,200 people have been killed in Syria in the government's violent crackdown on pro-democracy protests, according to the UN. The army and police have shot at demonstrators and shelled residential areas. Tonight, the British government has asked Russia to provide any information that could assist the investigation into the death of the former Russian spy. The request came after police confirmed that he was killed by a lethal dose of radiation. Traces of it have been discovered at his home and at a sushi restaurant and a hotel he went to on the day he fell ill. This is More 4 News. Gary Berntsen was a CIA field officer in Operation Jawbreaker, hunting for Osama bin Laden in the caves of Tora Bora. He joins me now from New York. Thanks very much for talking to us. Presumably when US forces invaded Afghanistan, you thought you'd find Osama bin Laden very quickly. What went wrong?
Well, we did, of course, find bin Laden in the mountains of Tora Bora. We were able to insert a force and conducted combat operations against him for 16 days in Tora Bora.
Why didn't you capture him?
Unfortunately, the request that I made for 600 to 800 Rangers was not fulfilled. We received Delta Force instead, which was a smaller contingent, and bin Laden was able to escape into Pakistan. Most Americans, and indeed the whole world, would have thought surely he was a priority for the US president. I mean, why did he not give you the resources you asked for? Well, let's talk to you individually, starting with you, Steve. You've been unemployed now for almost a year.
That's correct, yes.
And you are managing to get interviews. What is the problem you're finding and how can the budget help you?
Well, it's travelling to the interviews, and what we need is a fast-tracked method of being able to get to an interview for, like, say, the following day. Because the methods used these days is just so lengthy and it's proving almost impossible to get to interviews for the following day.
So maybe an increase in the job seekers allowance might be a way
That would be of great
doing
benefit,
that.
yes.
Davina, just tell us briefly what your company does.
So we actually write about digital businesses and also run educational and networking events.
We posed as a customer at a number of payday loan companies, secretly filming how the terms of the loans are explained. First, our researcher visited branches of the Money Shop, the biggest payday lender on the high street. The sales assistant tells our researcher she'll have to write out a series of £100 cheques for the amount she wants to borrow. The company's website describes their service as a 30-day walk-in loan. But how easy is it to turn this into a longer-term, more expensive debt? This is a huge disappointment for the firefighters who argued in court that it was against natural justice to take away pensions from people who were already retired on medical grounds. And their barrister said that the contract of firefighters was very similar to the military covenant, under which soldiers go to war knowing that if they're injured, they and their families will be financially protected. A big question mark looms over this development, the biggest inner-city shopping centre in the whole of Europe. As the UK heads into recession, can the Westfield Centre really pull in the 21 million visitors a year it expects to attract?